Hello, and welcome from Pushback to Partnership. We're going to be diving into how do we overcome different pushback that we might experience when we're coaching educators and how we can build to partnership. Right here is the link. So I would love for you to pause the video, type this in, because as you're watching this presentation, I would love to hear your thoughts and your ideas. There's also a link over here for notes. If you're a note taker like me, there are guided notes that can help you throughout today's session when kind of diving in bigger and thinking about, okay, how might I tackle this topic? My name is Stephanie Howe, and I'm a teaching and learning coordinator. You can reach out to me by email or on social media. I'm also a Google certified innovator, trainer, coach, and I love helping educators. There's also a community that you are more welcome to join. It's called Gold EDU. And what Gold EDU is there are a bunch of different email communications in this group of just educators asking for advice and support. And we would love to have you join. So I'm going to add that right here if you're interested in joining this Gold EDU group with educators. Again, there's a ton of different resources completely free to join. So I just would love to know, what are your goals? What goals do you have for joining today's session? What are you hoping to get out of today's session? What made you say, okay, I want to see this session. I am so interested in learning about it. So again, I just want you to take a moment and feel free to pause the video for as long as you need to when you're thinking about what goals you're hoping to get out of today's session. Maybe you're like, okay, pushback. I'm getting a ton of pushback in my own coaching. Maybe that's why you're here. You're like, I am getting a ton of pushback, Stephanie. I need a lot of help when it comes to how to support my teachers. That I'm here for that, right? So again, you're going to come over, you're going to grab either the comment tool or maybe a text box. And it's okay if this gets kind of busy and messy. We're going to come on this document and I'm going to use this font and I'm just going to type. Okay, again, I want you to just kind of pause and reflect. What brought you here today? Right? What made you say, I want to attend today's session? Okay, so maybe for me, my goal is to learn some new ideas to support teachers. Okay, so again, I want to hear your goal. Now I want to consider. Okay, so I've got this question and I really want to think about it. Think about a time where maybe you had a curriculum or a teaching strategy or a classroom management strategy that you resisted. Maybe you had a coach, an administrator, a district office, somebody was saying, hey, you need to do this. What were your reasons for maybe hesitating towards this strategy? What made you resist this strategy? So I'm going to share with you mine. I was a fifth grade special education teacher. So I was an intervention specialist. And my district was implementing Eureka Math. And it was very scripted, okay? We weren't able to kind of go between the timer even that was suggested. And a lot of us teachers were very upset with district office. They didn't necessarily rule it out the way that I would have ruled it out, looking back at that time and kind of thinking through, oh, I might have done that a little bit differently. So again, I want you to consider a time where you had a curriculum strategy or something, and what were maybe your reasons, right? Maybe you're like, I didn't know the why. Maybe it was just easier to do what I've always done. I felt uncomfortable stepping out of my comfort zone. The idea wasn't bad. I just was comfortable, right? Or perhaps maybe you're like, oh, this curriculum is not grade level or developmental appropriate, right? So again, I want you to just take a moment and think about it. Or maybe you're moving from LMS like Canvas to Google Classroom, or you're going from Google Classroom to Canvas, and a lot of teachers or even yourself resisted it, right? Or when technology first started to come into classrooms. So again, I really want you to think about a time. And if you agree with somebody else's time, I would love for you to go to Add Media, grab a sticker, and you're like, oh my gosh, my district also implemented Eureka Math really, really poorly. So again, I would love for you to go to Add Media, There's a smiley face with these stickers, and I would love for you to add a sticker onto something that somebody else has said that you're like, oh, me too, right? Me too. And so there comes this piece with cognitive process research on change. There's a lot of research when it comes to changing how we're able to go from pushback to partnership. Okay. And so there is kind of these three kind of really focused on this research. And when we focus on these parts of the research, we're really able to start to see a lot of gains from me resisting that Eureka Myth curriculum that's really scripted. So first, we really need to focus on the difference in information. Okay, so there might be some information and we've got different personalities. Okay, telling someone that they have to use that timer during their Eureka math lessons might help that person change, but for some people, they're going to fight you. They're going to resist you, right? And so again, it goes to knowing different personalities and styles. And that's going to be really helpful when we know about different people and how we can coach them, how we can support them when it comes to moving from pushback to that partnership. Also, the way that we process and react to information. What I've noticed is a lot of times when we went from, Eureka Math and it's scripted, there wasn't a whole lot of time or space for teachers to speak out. There wasn't a whole lot of time for teachers to process their emotions to the change. We might have not allowed them to feel a certain way about or speak up or ask questions. And I think sometimes when we're going through change, we just kind of quickly process over those emotional pieces instead of really allowing teachers that time to come to us in a safe space where it's psychological safe to express their concerns, to explain what strategies or what they're dealing with when it comes to really needing to support our students. We also need to consider stress. When there's change, there is an increased stress level. Okay, this can make that process of change even more difficult. So we've got to, again, be able to, in our coaching cycles, make it a safe space, support our teachers, and show them, hey, I'm here by your side to support you with this change. And then resistance to change increases when individual needs are not met. When these three things, when our individual needs are not met, you're going to see an increase when it comes to resistance. Okay, so when we're not just giving information the way that people need to, that align with their personalities, when we're not allowing people to process and reflect on how they're feeling about this change, when we're not kind of thinking about those factors of stress, that's when you're going to notice an increased level of needs not being met, and it's really going to impact the movement that you might want to see in your coaching. So strategy 1, we want to communicate in their terms. We're going to be talking about different personalities. So I would just love to know, as I'm going through these, if you would just go in, take a picture. So add media, take a picture, and add your photo onto the screen. And I want you to think about, which one am I more like? Okay, which one do I prefer to be coached as? So maybe you want to coach like a champion. This is that person that suggests just one strategy at a time. They might start to feel overwhelmed and they might kind of implement a lot of different ideas. And so what you have to do with this type of person is you need to kind of be there to support them and challenge them to try just one new strategy. Okay, this person needs you to kind of break down the different pieces when it comes to supporting them as an educator. We also have coaching as a useful resource. This person loves your newsletters, right? This person, they need you to skip the theory. They want to show you what works. Show them what works, okay? This person loves when you listen to a podcast and you think of them to share a new idea or strategy with them. They want lesson ideas that they can actually try to implement tomorrow. And what they want to do is they're going to come back for more. The more that you share with this coach or teacher, they're going to be excited to try more. We also have coach like an expert. This person, they love the theory. They like the research, the data. They want all of the background between the data. And honestly, this is where I fell short as a coach. I was not kind of that person. I am more of that useful research. I'm like, okay, I'm an oversharer. Give me all the things, right? I'll go through it. But a lot of times, teachers need us to be experts, some of them. They want us to explain the frameworks. They want to ask a lot of questions. And so if I am not supporting this person right here, I'm really going to struggle. And this actually should say mentor. So there's other teachers that need you to coach like a mentor. And so when you're coaching like a mentor, what that means is you're just suggesting something that might work for their students. And they also might kind of think about it. They want to brainstorm with you. They want to come together. They want to share practical tips. But again, they need that partnership where there's that back and forth communication. And you have to remember that there's not a one-size approach, okay, for this teacher or for any of our teachers. So again, I would love for you to go to Add Media, grab that nice little camera, add your photo on and resize it, and let us know. Which one do you think you coach more like? Okay, again, that champion, you're just suggesting maybe one strategy at a time. They go and try it. They get overwhelmed pretty easily. And so you need to really be there to support, maybe demonstrate that strategy to support them. The coach as a useful resource. Again, you're going to skip that theory. And this person needs you to give them a lesson that they can try tomorrow. They're going to try it out. And if it works, they're going to be back for more. Maybe you're the expert where you like the research, theory, or data behind it. And you're like, I am not trying this until I know for sure that this works. Okay. Or maybe you're that mentor where you just want to brainstorm. You want to combine ideas together with other folks before you implement this. Okay. So again, I just want to know, which one are you? Okay. And you're probably starting to think about teachers who might fall into these different kind of personalities or different ways that they prefer to be coached. And so now that you've kind of thought about these different people, I really want you to kind of think about one way that best describes kind of these folks that like to be coached, right? So for example, when we coach like a champion, we want to make sure that we show them that students, right, they can talk about how we can collaborate in groups. When we're working with these folks, we want to maybe recommend trying out how we can support each other. So let's go ahead and let's think about a strategy that we maybe want to implement where we're getting some resistance. So again, I want you to kind of think about, what are you getting some resistance on, okay? And for me, I've got this tech tip. Okay, so we got a new technology tool, and a teacher or teachers is seeking advice on how to improve student engagement using that tool. Okay, so if we're coaching like a champion, we might kind of support this teacher, and I want you to add your thoughts onto this document. Okay, so again, I would love for you to add your thoughts. Feel free to pause the video as you might need to, but I want you to think about, if you're coaching this teacher, how can we coach like a champion? Yeah, come in and maybe co-teach. Support them. They get overwhelmed pretty easily. So you just being there to support them on this new technology tool might be really, really helpful, just to come in and co-teach. Okay, what if we're using this as a useful resource? I might share a lesson plan idea. This teacher probably is going to go and try it, right? If it goes well, they're going to be back for more. So share a lesson plan idea. Maybe we do something like a KWL chart. And the class can have like a discussion. Again, I want you to pause and add your ideas. Okay, again, we've got this new technology tool, and the teacher is seeking advice on how to improve student engagement using the tool. If we're an expert, think about it. We need to show the teacher the research. They need to know, why does this work? What case studies maybe has it shown? Sometimes I like to maybe use the teacher, the champion, or the useful resource teacher, or even the mentor, and I'll kind of say, so and so, this teacher did it, and this is how it went. I like to kind of provide those examples and resources to really help with that. I also might share some of Hattie's work when it comes to effect size. And I also might kind of think about what else might help, right? Using case studies, or again, using those other teachers. Again, this one should be mentor. And so when we're mentoring our teachers, maybe we ask questions, right? I might ask this person questions in my planning meeting. There's a lot of different planning meetings that might happen. Yeah, plan a lesson together, right? And then what I often also did is I would plan a lesson with this teacher that likes the mentor, and I would sometimes share it with the useful resource teacher, because I planned it out. I can share it with this teacher, I can co-teach it with the champion, and then I can explain the impact that we had when it comes to that expert. So again, there was a lot of different ways that I could support my teachers pretty easily when it came to doing this. Again, it's all about doing it correctly, and doing it in the right way, and knowing your teachers. Okay, so again, I would love to know what your ideas. You've got this new technology tool, a teacher seeking feedback on how they can improve student engagement using the tool. So now what I want you to do is I want you to think about, what did you notice about your personality style? For me, I am this coach as a useful resource. So for me, to connect with this expert is sometimes difficult. To work with a mentor and stop and pause and ask questions to get somebody else's feedback is something I need to think about. I also maybe need to work on co-teaching strategies. So again, I just want you to think about, what is it, right? I'm that person, and you can use the comment tool here, that I have a ton of resources. And so I need to remember, some teachers don't want me to be the oversharer. They get overwhelmed, right? And I had to remember that as that person that loves to share resources and strategies and support with teachers. So again, I want you to use a moment and just think about, what do you notice about your teaching? What do you notice? Now we're going to go into the so what. What has been the consequence of this? The consequence of this has been, I have had some pushback. Who feel overwhelmed, right? Teachers who feel overwhelmed. I've had some pushback from this. So again, I want you to just kind of think about, maybe you tend to overwhelm teachers. Maybe you are the one that researches and you don't try new things, right? Maybe you don't have the knowledge on the background. So you're like, I need to make sure this is actually research-based, right? We also might not be reaching all teachers. So again, think about, what consequence have you seen from maybe not supporting all of your teachers? Now I want you to study your opposite. Okay, so my opposite again is that expert. I sometimes just dive into, hey, this is a cool idea. And I've got research, but I just don't take the moment to explain it maybe. So I want you to think about, how can you do better, right? How can you pause and think, maybe I can be a better listener, right? So again, you're going to click and add your thoughts and ideas. Okay, again, feel free to pause for as long as you need to. And again, I just want you to think, slow down, and maybe I need to know where the teacher's at. I work so fast. Now we're going to go into strategy 2, where we move from collaborative problem solving. How do we move from judgment, right? There's this teacher that wanted a lot of research, and I thought he was kind of pushing back on me as a coach. And I was like, why doesn't he trust me, right? I know what I've been doing. Why won't he try this? Why does he keep asking questions, right? I need to embrace those questions. I need to embrace that part when it comes to supporting him as an educator. Next, I want you to think, how do I move from dictating to empowering? What are some strategies that I can do? And how do I move from resistance to collaboration? Okay. So again, I would love for you to just kind of pause for a minute and really take into effect, how do I not judge those teachers, right? Maybe it's building relationships. Maybe for you it is doing morning walkthroughs where I just checked in. So I would often do check-ins. So again, I would love to know your strategies. Feel free to use the text box or the comments to add in your ideas when it comes to how do you move from judgment to that curiosity. How do you know for sure, oh, I shouldn't be judging this teacher. I really need to kind of, build that curiosity, asking questions, getting them to support me, and kind of thinking about that. Okay, so again, take a moment and think about that. How do you move from dictating to empowering? How do I empower my teachers? Right? Maybe it's I need to listen a lot more. Maybe you need to support your teachers. Maybe your next step is to really consider and shift those perspectives. So instead of saying this is the way we do it, maybe I start asking questions. And maybe I start to ask, what do you need? What do you need to implement this strategy? How can I encourage differentiation and personalized learning into my coaching, right? How can I support? Okay, so again, you can use the text box or the comment tool to add your thoughts. The next piece is that resistance piece. And I really want you to think about that teacher that maybe is like, this will not work for my students. Maybe I can change my questioning, right? Maybe I can change the way that I say this. Maybe I coach alongside them in a co-teaching model where I say something like, let's figure this out together. Let's figure out what we need to do to get this to work, okay? So again, I want you to think about what are some strategies or resources that you have used in your own coaching when it comes to supporting these teachers. Maybe from judgment to curiosity, we start instead of what's wrong with this person, how are we different, right? How can I promote acceptance and understanding? From dictating to empowering, how can I move from this is the way that we always do it to what can I do to support you with implementing this strategy? Resistance to collaboration, how can I let go of this used to not work for my students? And how can I move to let's figure out what we need to do to make this work, right? Differentiation coaching is about moving away from that one size fit all approach. And it's now about moving towards a more personalized approach where we really support our teachers, where we really go into detail, where we're empowering, collaborating, that coaching experience. So again, first it starts off with knowing the personalities. Once you know those personalities, it's really helpful to go kind of from these collaborative, now problem-solving approaches where we move from judgment, we move from dictating, we move from resistance to curiosity, empowering, and collaboration. So again, if you have a strategy that you're able to support with this differentiated coaching, I would love to hear it by adding a text or comment down below. And now strategy number 3. How do we inspire change with evidence? Evidence is what's going to get those teachers to come back for more. So I want you to think about how might I help teachers see how blank can support their instruction? Maybe it's collaborative learning. Maybe it's a certain strategy. I really would love for you to just kind of think about how can I help them see that collaboration does work? How can I help them see that their feedback on the writing does make a difference? So again, we really want to support our teachers when it comes to how might I do this? So again, I would love for you to add a comment or a text box onto the screen and really think about how we can motivate our teachers, right? How might I help teachers see how collaboration can really support instruction? Can I come in and maybe observe? right? And there is a document that I love to use when I'm observing teachers. So again, if you go over to YouTube, there is a ton of videos. If you type in Gold EDU, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. So you can just hit subscribe. And once you're here, I'm going to search observation. And again, there's a ton of videos right here. And this is what I love to use. I love to kind of have this, and I'll kind of take this resource and I'll change it to what I need it to work for my teachers and how I'm supporting them. But I can focus on, okay, were students on task? This really helps me focus during that coaching cycle when I'm observing how my teachers are doing in an activity. Okay, so this could be a great way for you to really kind of focus in and support. What assessment data can I use to support? Is there pre, post data that you can use to show that a strategy is working to support teachers? Okay, so is there some type of pre or post data that we can use that really supports teachers and their understanding? And again, consider your opposite. Think about that personality. What research, for me, right? I struggle with that expert. What research can I bring to the table to support them in that learning and supporting them with trying out that new strategy? Now, I would love to know, what is your Monday? What is that one thing that you're going to try tomorrow? Start small. Maybe you need to send out a survey to your teachers. Maybe you need to have a conversation around goal setting. Maybe you need to find out where your teachers are. And then what's that someday goal, right? Some of the things, some of the ideas might feel a little overwhelming. But I really want you to think about, okay, what's my someday goal where I want to do this in the long term? So for me, maybe I want to find out where my teachers are when it comes to those 4 categories. My someday goal, I want to start presenting information that meets the needs of all teachers. Okay? It takes time, it takes practice, and it takes a lot of patience, right? So again, think about what's that small thing that you took away from today's session that you're excited to try tomorrow. And then I want you to think that someday goal. What are you hoping that you'll take away someday where you're going to be able to hopefully implement this? Maybe it's next quarter, next year. Think about that someday goal for implementation. And thank you so much for joining me. Again, here's my information. If you have any questions or need anything, I'm more than happy to help. We would also love for you to join that Gold EDU group and ask questions and join this community of amazing educators. I can't wait to collaborate with you, and I cannot wait to see how much you learn and take away from this notes. I would love to see any questions or takeaways that you have. Would love to see it on social, or if you wouldn't mind sending me an email with your greatest takeaway. Cannot wait to see what your next steps are when it comes from pushback to partnership.